Party people, what is happening? It's your boy, the ROB, Rob Hunter. And I don't have an agenda today other than I just want to take a minute to celebrate. Celebrate the good things in life. There are plenty of conversations happening right now about how bad the world is, how bad the economy is, how high gas prices are, how high food prices are. I get it. I totally get it. But if we live in that space of negativity, we miss out on the good things in life. And I just want to share some cool things that have just happened to me in my life. I've been doing a lot of nostalgic digging into my life, but it helps me appreciate it more. And I wonder if this is something, if we did it more often, we'd all feel better about our lives, despite what's happening in the world. So for 27 years, I was a radio broadcaster. For 16 of those or so, I was based in Phoenix, Arizona, where I currently still live. The last radio show I did was called Russell and Hunter on a station here in Phoenix called 550 KFYI. I did it with my main man, my big bro, Mike Russell. And our show started a week before the pandemic. I only bring up the pandemic because I saw there was a headline about a rat virus. No, I'm kidding. I didn't bring it up for that. But this is where I had a big life shift during the pandemic because there were all these things that were happening around me and there was all this panic and people were waiting in lines to buy toilet paper. Holla at me if you remember. By the way, the chat is open. So I will ask you a question as we go. I would love to know what you want to celebrate about life. What do you want to celebrate? Could be a little small thing. Could be a big thing. So during the pandemic, I was listening to government officials. I was listening to news media pundits. I was listening to supposedly smart people tell me about the science. And at some point, I realized that no matter what is happening in the world, I got to live in it. And I have to live in it my way. So as I get more nostalgic about my life, one of the things that I appreciate the most and the fact that I want to celebrate is what I like to call living off the wall. I don't know if you know the Michael Jackson song, Off the Wall, but that's what he talks about. One of the lines he sings is, ain't no rules, it's up to you. See, and you're lucky I didn't sing for you today. I know better. Ain't no rules, it's up to you. And I wish I had understood that principle a lot earlier in life. It took me a little while to really embrace it. Maybe the pandemic was that example and kind of woke me up to this idea. And I bring that up because since the pandemic, there's been a lot of crazy things that have been happening. A lot of crazy news, a lot of name calling, a lot of division. Division, by the way, is the world's largest economy. I just want you to know that. All these companies that basically run information, which means you run the world, they're built on triggering you emotionally. And if you're not aware of that, those apparatuses, they control you. You don't control you. So the pandemic for me was this big period of time to get a hold of myself and control what I can control. If you follow Stoicism, it's called the dichotomy of control. You're only in control of you. And let's make that even simpler. It's very simple when you are understanding that you can control what you do, your actions, and then what you say. Basically it. You can control your attitude as well in your internal conversation, but you get what I'm getting at here. You can only control you. And the reason I have my whiteboard here, I love whiteboards. I'm all about the whiteboards. I work with my clients on whiteboards. We call it the whiteboard treatment because the visual aspects of the whiteboard allows us to think differently because we can see patterns in our own thinking. Oftentimes what happens is there are people that do whiteboard sessions and then nothing happens after that because the whiteboard, the complete whiteboard brings up a pattern that you can spot. So I wrote some things that I want to celebrate today, which we'll talk about as we go along here on Substack. And going back to the pandemic and realizing what living life off the wall truly is. Think about it like a dance with life. You get to pick your groove. My groove, I love hip hop music. I love R&B music. I like some country music, some rock music. I like some jazz music. So I got all these different grooves that I can groove to. Life is like that because it's going to happen no matter what. Gas prices are going to be what they're going to be. The president's going to be whoever the president's going to be. You still have to live in the world regardless of what happens in those external events, those events that you have no control over. During that pandemic, I let go of the reins, so to speak, and it altered my trajectory and it altered my life. And that became one of the main reasons why I left talk radio, was because I was growing and expanding and I want to have different conversations because the media art form is all about that negativity, because the media is part of that division economy, that largest economy on earth. And not just the social media companies, the media companies, the marketers, the advertisers, what they have done over the last 50, 60, 70 years, they have studied you, your mind, your psychology, what buttons to press. So they know you so well. Food companies do this too. The reason why a Skittle tastes so good to me, a Sour Patch Kid, chemicals that are manipulating my taste buds to make me want more Sour Patch Kids. And those are hard to resist. What's your favorite snack? Let me know. Got to have a favorite snack. But as I took more control and understood what control meant, once I embraced this dance of life, I realized something, that I'm never in the wrong place. And this will come into play in some of the stories I'm going to tell you starting today and over the next few weeks, because the real bottom line here, I buried the lead. I went to Africa last year on a whim, in a way. And this was a trip that it just changed my life. And that is an example of living life off the wall. That's my version of it. The dance and the groove that I want to do is I want to go to Africa when I want, because I got the chance to, because an opportunity opened up. And it was because of a random connection. And these are the things in life worth celebrating. It's worth celebrating those random connections that got you where you are. And I have so many examples that I could give you. I can go back to Miss Mecca, who was my first radio mentor. She was absolutely amazing, taught me how to play records on the radio, taught me how to use the microphone, taught me how to speak on the microphone, how to tell stories, how to introduce songs, how to come out of a song, all those good radio tools where my communications coaching is based in. The approach that we take is really putting your best interesting stories and ideas forward and doing them so clearly that you cannot be ignored. That wouldn't have happened without Miss Mecca. And then after Miss Mecca, I got partnered up for 2 years with Optimus, my first radio show, Monday Night Raw, Boston, Massachusetts. So that was great. And then from there, I graduate. My cousin knows a guy named Andrew Lee who runs a station in Gainesville, Florida. After graduating from Boston, Emerson College in Boston, I moved to Florida. My wife, girlfriend at the time, was in Florida, and so was my aunt. So I lived with my aunt for a little while. And then my cousin comes through, introduces me to Andrew Lee, and I get this gig, my first paid radio job. And that was a great opportunity for me because Andrew Lee let me do a bunch of stuff. I'm a young 22, 23-year-old kid, and I got my first filming opportunities. I got to be on air doing news, and I had a sports show. And I was young, and it was phenomenal. It was hard at the time because I was making no dough. 17 grand was my first paycheck. 17 grand. That's the price of your dreams right there. But what I learned from it and living life off the wall is what I'm celebrating today. Because from there, it was Dan Frazier, my boss in New Orleans, who I got hired on a 1 in a million chance. In radio, you would either have to send a cassette tape or a CD, eventually an MP3 that you could send to stations so they could hear you. So I saw this job on one of the radio station posting websites where the jobs are, and I sent a CD. And it's so funny how these things connect, and these are worth celebrating. The CD I sent Dan was a CD of the first full show I did as a talk show. It was on the first anniversary of the 9/11 attacks. And this was so cool because that would have been 2002. So I would have just turned 24 years old. And to have this opportunity to talk about something so momentous at that age was a dream come true. That's worth celebrating because now I see that my work that led up to getting that opportunity, and the opportunity was not filling in for another show. They actually preempted one of our national show hosts so that I could do a show on 9/11/02. I mean, talk about gratitude. Talk about, I don't know if that's luck. I don't know if it's divine intervention, a combination of both, but it's worth celebrating because the older I get, the more I see these divine intervention moments, including 17 days in Africa. 100%, that entire trip was a massive God moment. Unbelievable. Because of a random connection. So you get where I'm going with this, right? These dots start to connect. So I leave radio at the end of 2023 to start my own business. And in the process of that business, I joined a business group, the High Achievers Mastermind, another one of these awesome connections. My man, Jeff Shaw, my business mentor, puts together a great group of us, and we all collaborate together for a year. And part of that collaboration is having a nice little retreat. We all get together in person because most of the time we're spread out across the country, even into Canada. So we try to get together twice a year in person. And last year, the first retreat was in Paris. So being an entrepreneur, you have a little bit more free time, a little more vacation days. So my wife, Amy, and I decided to go to Paris for 3 weeks. Like 2 weeks ahead of the business retreat, and then a week or so would be spent in the business retreat. So this is a random connection. This is where just going with the flow, living life off the wall can lead you to phenomenal places. So it was one day in Paris where we didn't have an agenda. We left some days open to just wander and see where Paris would take us. So Amy says, I want to have a glass of wine on the Seine, the river that cuts through Paris. And I was like, okay, let's go do it. Truth is, I was a little grumpy that day. I didn't sleep well, and I was a little tired. But, nothing perks you up like a glass of wine at 12:30 in the afternoon, sitting on a river in Paris. And that's when this guy rolls up on an electric bike. He's wearing a helmet, looks pretty tall, and he just kind of pulls up and he parks at the table that's next to us. So Amy and I are sitting. There's the river in front of us. Amy's on the right. I'm to her left. And then this man pulls up like behind us. So Amy turns around and sees him and says, hey, that's a cool bike. And as he's getting off his bike, he says, I'm actually selling it. I'm going to go get a beer and I'll come back and we'll chat. Goes and gets his beer. He comes back and starts chatting. And this is all because of Amy, because of one sentence changed my life. And what I mean by change my life, this adventure that I went on just filled me with so much optimism, passion for life, passion for adventure, a reminder to live life off the wall. And I love that I have this go-to phrase for myself that I can remind myself that my goal is to live life off the wall, to experience life and all of its little intricacies and manage it and live through it and enjoy it. Because for so long in the talk radio career, I was focused on all the negative things, all the problems that don't have solutions, focused on the fact that Washington, D.C. is broken and is not going to fix problems. It's not designed to fix problems. But you know who is designed to fix problems and come up with innovative solutions? You and me. Us. Working together. We are meant to be collaborative. So in my 27 years of covering politics, and I mean, I covered it up close and personal. I went to 4 presidential conventions. I covered the '08 election in Iowa up close and personal, interviewed several of the candidates. I was in New Hampshire, the second election. I went to Iowa twice to cover the election, and we did election night coverage every year. And I went to an inauguration. So I was real close to politics, interviewed hundreds of politicians, all focused on negativity, being part of that largest economy in the world, division. So the opposite of that is the economy that we create with each other. And that doesn't have to be a monetary economy only. It can be an energy, a collaboration, a friendship. I see my man Pat Maney is in the building. Speaking of friendship, what's up, bud? Pat's a phenomenal dude. He's another one that was kind of a random connection. He listened to the radio show and he would text in and we would chat via text and we would agree and we would disagree. And then I represented a gun store. So I was at an event at the gun store and we're having a nice Saturday sale. And Pat came on over and he shook my hand and we chatted for, 30, 45 minutes in the parking lot, hit it off. And I'm like, all right, let's hang out. So from there, Pat and I started hanging out. And I love Pat because Pat has like this big old brain of knowledge that he gets to share with me. World history. We talk about World War II and just whatever. It's absolutely awesome to celebrate the random connection. So Pat, I'm celebrating you. Thanks, buddy. So this random connection in Paris, this conversation, I'm sitting on the Seine. Amy asks about the bike and why he's selling it. And he says, well, I'm moving. I'm leaving Paris. I've been here for 2 years. And I got to go. And we're like, oh, why? Why are you leaving? It's like, I was working for USAID. And then I got fired. And that happened when Trump was inaugurated the second time. He brought in Elon Musk to eliminate government waste. And there were tons of headlines about USAID helping trans farmers in, Japan or something like that. And that led to shutting down most of USAID. Sate's work was completely different. And he explained this to us while we're sitting there on the river. What Sate does, he is an economist. What he will do is he will look at, say, a farm's plan and see if it's economically viable, to see if it's worth investing in, because there's huge upsides to investing in farms. And Sate worked in Asia and he's worked in Africa. I'll use the country of Niger as an example because this is one of the stories that he told me. So Niger is north of Nigeria in Africa. Niger has a terrorism challenge. Boko Haram is located there, and they're not a nice organization. But they try to recruit kids all the time. And if there are no jobs, it is easier to recruit a kid. Sate had said, Boko Haram can come into any village across Niger, give out $100 bill to one kid, and that kid will join. That kid might be 8, might be 9. But if the kid has a job, he works on a farm, for example, it's all good. Well, it's an improvement. So Sate would vet the farmer's plan, make sure it's viable, and make sure that there would be return on an investment for us as American taxpayers. That was his job that he lost. So now, because of that loss, the risk of terrorist organizations recruiting younger talent increases. And that's his real world firsthand perspective. So Amy then says, what are you going to do? What are you going to do now? He goes, professionally, I'm not really sure yet, but I do know that I'm going to go to West Africa in July and I'm going to film a documentary on the dish of rice that I grew up eating. It's fascinating. Again, I talk about another random connection to celebrate. Sate was born in D.C. His parents are diplomats. They are from a country called the Gambia. The Gambia is a small sliver of country inside Senegal. Senegal is the western tip of Africa, the furthest west you can go. And he spent a lot of time in Senegal. Senegal invented this dish of rice, Sate tells us. It's called jollof. And it's communal. It comes in like a big old bowl in a big old pile of rice. Like we're talking like 2, 3, 4 cups of rice, bunch of veggies in there, bunch of spices. And this is like a gumbo in the sense that it all day cooks. It all day stews to bring all those flavors up as he's telling us this. And I've now experienced this. And it's usually served with some fish on the top or chicken, depending on, where you're at. Senegal invented the dish, but there is what they call the jollof wars in West Africa. Whose jollof is the best? It is like a cooking show. The original Senegalese rice, the spicier Ghanaian rice, or the Nigerian jollof. So those are the 3 countries that he's going to go to. He's going to compare them all. Going to get a local chef to cook food in each of those 3 places. So I'm like, that's really interesting. And as we got to talking, Sate also said that his wife works for the U.S. State Department, and she's transferring to Kenya. So Sate's future is in Nairobi. And oddly enough, that was where Sate was supposed to go work for his next chapter with USAID. But that wasn't going to be happening. But his wife still got her post. Actually, Sate's currently in Nigeria right now. And that's that random connection that changed my life. Because as Sate was leaving, he had to go pick up his son. I mentioned that both Amy and I have journalism backgrounds. And if he wants help drawing out the story for his documentary, I'd be more than happy to help him. So we exchanged numbers. He says he's going to send us a list of all these Parisian restaurants since we got a couple more weeks in the city. That was awesome. But then the unexpected surprise happened. And let's celebrate unexpected surprises. Because 2 days after we met him, he invited us over for lunch. But not just lunch. My man cooked for us. Sate cooked a clam pasta dish that was to die for. So good. Had a couple drinks, met his wife, met his son. Phenomenal. Like we became fast friends. That led to a dinner invite 2 days later. It was a Friday night. So I run down to Sate's apartment. Amy comes with me, and he's making dinner for us. And this would be part of the story because this is one of the things worth celebrating. And this is one of the things that fundamentally changed me. Sate on Friday night cooked us lamb that he'd been cooking all day, slow cooked. And he lived in this beautiful Paris apartment, beautiful State Department apartment. Could see the Eiffel Tower in the distance. Oh my goodness. Like you want to talk about Paris. If you have an image of Paris, that is really how this scenario drew out. And I'm celebrating all of this because I was open to it. So Friday night, we eat some lamb. After we're done, we clean up. We have some adult cocktails and Negroni, as a matter of fact. Sate makes a very mean Negroni. So good. And as I'm sipping my Negroni, it may have been my second Negroni, he looks at me and he goes, "Would you want to come with me on my trip?" And I look over at Amy and I kind of do this like Indiana Jones smile thing. And I'm like, hell yeah. Let me see if I can work this out. So at this point, it's mid-May, maybe like May 10th, 9th, something like that. When are you leaving? I ask him. He's like, July 5th. So I don't have much time to make all this happen. But this is the best invitation to go see a new place, a continent that I've been dreaming about visiting since I was a kid. I'm not really sure why, but I've had this vision and I had this dream. Now, interestingly enough, I was always obsessed with Kenya. Not only because of the national parks, but Kenya just seemed like a fascinating, interesting, awesome place to be. But that's not where I went. I went to the countries I mentioned. I went to Senegal, I went to Ghana, and I went to Nigeria with a little bit of a pit stop in Togo, which I did not even know was a country until I started researching this trip. And even this trip in and of itself, so many things just came together perfectly that it is almost stunning, almost unbelievable. But I lived it because I lived life off the wall, because I chose to dance with life, because I took an unexpected surprise and I said yes through a random connection. And I'll just say this. I don't know that I've ever been more present in my life than when I was on this trip. I blocked out everything in the outside world. I even put my ambitions on the shelf and my business goals on the shelf. And I left them at home because I wanted to experience this in all my senses, my sight, my smell, my ears, that feeling of energy that you get. There were some nervous moments for me because my body is just not used to being in this place. But all in all, one of the best parts was that my expectations were defied. Here's why I say that. Going back to division is the world's largest economy. The easiest trigger to pull on a human is fear, because we all have it. It's instinctual, it's survival, and it's really easy to stir up. So that is what the media model is. That's what the social media model is. Give you something to be frightened about, to cause you to react, to keep you on the platform, to show you more ads, because you're the product on Facebook, Instagram. Here on Substack, we like to do things a little bit differently. You're not the product. You're part of our community. That's why it's been built. And it's more likely that I can have conversations like this than on those other platforms for that very reason. So fear was the main thing that I heard leading up to my African adventure. First thing I did was look for a health clinic because I needed to get some shots in order to go. You got to get like a yellow fever shot. I had to get an updated polio vaccine. I had to take malaria pills. And there were a couple of others that I had to get to. I think I had to get 4 shots. I took 1 set of pills and then I had malaria pills. So I got like 6 or 7 things out of this that I needed to have because, the malaria is high, mosquitoes, etc. But I walk into the health clinic and I come into the room with the nurse and I sit down and, I'm sitting this way and like there's a poster over here on my left. And the poster is everything that kills humans. It's huge. It's like a flat screen TV size staring you right in the face. And at the bottom is like sharks, 4, something like that. 6 maybe. And then it goes up and it's dogs. And then there's second most is other humans, 100 and something thousand murders every year. But above that, the biggest line by far is the mosquito line. You're going to die, young man, when you go to Africa because you're going to get stung by a mosquito and you're going to get Ebola. I don't even think Ebola transmits through mosquitoes, but that's what you're thinking when you're looking at this big thing. Like, what am I getting myself into? I mean, I knew that there's a lot of differences between the USA, Phoenix, Arizona, where I live, and the entire continent of Africa, let alone West Africa, which is one of the hardest places to travel to. It is fairly expensive. The visa process is slow and challenging, although it is progressing. Senegal, actually, super easy. You just land, you're good to go. Ghana's harder, but I got lucky on that one. I'll tell you that story at some point. That's a cool story. Ghana was phenomenal. There's a KFC in Accra, the capital city of Ghana. There's a Burger King. Very Americanized. There's a Nestle building, although that's not American, but whatever that is. And then I got into Nigeria because they had just updated their e-visa program like in May. I was going in July. So that was actually really cool. But when I was in Togo, this is a country you're supposed to have a visa. I did not. My flight was late, missed a connection. But there's a cool story in there too. Because weirdly, when I was in Togo, I'm 7,000 plus miles away from home. I meet a couple that lives 10 miles from me in Phoenix. Unbelievable. So we became fast friends. And we hang out all the time now because they live right down the street. All these things, right? Those random connections, those surprises, unexpected, both pleasant and unexpected. But I'm filled with fear, mosquitoes. And then I decide, let me watch some YouTube videos and see what the YouTubers are talking about in Senegal, in Nigeria, in Ghana. And of course, the videos that I see, Dakar, Senegal's biggest slum, Accra, Ghana's poorest neighborhood, the poorest neighborhood in the world in Lagos, Nigeria. And you're seeing these images and they're impacting you because your brain doesn't know the difference. It's watching a screen, it's thinking it's real. I'm already got a fear sense in the mosquitoes up there. And if you think about the health clinic, what's the benefit in them scaring the shit out of you? You're going to spend more money on their stuff. The antidote to the fear is this big pile of things. They gave me initially a list of like 25 things that I could do, including a rabies shot, because they were like, there's a lot of rabid dogs in Senegal in particular. I'm like, how do you know that? You don't know that. So you might want to get this rabies shot. And I look at the price, like $900. I'm like, I think I'll be fine. The total bill they were trying to get me to pay, $5,400. So it ain't cheap to go to Africa. I did not pay that. I did not buy everything on the list. I picked and choose, but it was still like $1,200, $1,500 maybe. Well worth every penny, by the way. But that sense of fear and that sense that I got to be on guard is really what's coming up. So how this whole thing worked, I did get into Senegal. I'll kind of go through. I'm going to just release this content because I filmed so much of it and I've struggled to put it out because I want it to be perfect because this was a trip that moved me in immeasurable ways. It inspired me despite my fear. And that's why I celebrate the expectations defied. So when I was flying to Senegal, I left from London. I was in London for a conference. So that was actually pretty nice because it was like 7 hours. I went from London to Barcelona and Barcelona into Dakar, Senegal. And I was fine until I got close to Senegal. Like I could see the airport. I'm like, okay, that being aware starting to kick in. This is going to be a new environment. Part of that is language because Senegal is a French-speaking country. And they also speak Wolof, which is the native Senegalese language. And they speak very little English. And I have been to Japan in places where there's very little English, but it's more or less easy to get around. I've been to Rome. It's super easy to get around. Most everyone speaks English there. Paris, there's way more English than they let on. So it's super easy to get around in Paris. But this was going to be different because there's going to be less English speakers. So I feel my guard go up as we get close to land. And when I walk into the airport, because I got to get through security and I got to get through immigration, which I did. They're very serious in Senegal, asking me where I was going, what I was doing here. But after that, they were fine. And then I met Toussaint. And Toussaint is a guy that Sate had hired to get me to them safely. So I'm like starting to feel this other category right here to celebrate hospitality. Now I'm going to tell you about hospitality. You know about hospitality. You have something that comes to mind. Maybe it's a hotel you stayed at. Maybe it's a vacation you went on. Think of how good that service was. This is not 5-star hospitality. This is much deeper than that. This is their spirit. In Senegal, the world is Teranga. And I watched a few videos about this before I went. And I was curious to see if I could experience that spirit. Or because I was an outsider, I would not. Well, guess what I experienced the entire time I was in Senegal? Even though I was on guard at times, even though I was nervous at times, even though fear showed up at times, because I had 3 days by myself in Senegal. And that was awesome. Tricky, a little scary, but awesome. Because I navigated through Dakar, Senegal on my own with a limited language a big language barrier, limited language commonality. But see, the spirit is what it was all about. So I was sitting on a beach, meeting up with some of Sate's friends. And I interview Ali, who owns a surf shop. And as we were in the interview, he's like, we're going to sit down and eat after we're done talking. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. So we get done and Ali goes and talks to his staff. He's runs a business in Senegal. It's not easy. He's got I think he has 3 employees. So he's responsible for this little community. He goes and he was chatting with his buddies, and I'm like taking down my equipment, and I go back and I sit down in the chair and I have a beer. And I wrote about this if you want to go on my Substack and you can read about this day, because it may be the best day of my life. I don't know. I don't know if anything will ever top this, because I'm drinking my beer and then Ali kind of motions me over to sit down at their table that they put on the beach. And this guy that was sitting next to me that only spoke French picked up a milk crate and he put it down and patted it sit. But it gets even better because I shared this big communal bowl of rice, the one I told you about a little bit ago. That's like the big bowl and you only have a spoon and you spoon to mouth it. The guy next to me, again, I just met him today, 30 minutes before this, takes the fish off the bone and puts it in front of me and he goes, mange. The coolest thing. It was those are kind of moments you can't make up, you can't script. Those are the kind of moments that are worth celebrating. And when you're in the moment, all of that comes with you. All of that sense and that feeling to be a stranger in a strange land, but welcome as if I was an old friend. The coolest thing. And so many other great things happened in Senegal, random connections. The woman who cooked our jollof rice, the woman Said had hired, chef named Lot, her husband Bamba owns a rice harvester. So he invited us out to a rice farm in northern Senegal. Phenomenal. It was the coolest thing to see. The images that you've maybe seen of a woman in Africa with a baby in a satchel on her back with the sickle, I saw that. I saw the village that this rice farm supports economically. They have means, they have food, they have a job, they have a purpose. Awesome to see. And just to think, because we went with the flow and we stayed in the moment and all these beautiful, amazing things happened. So if you've been caught in a negative news cycle, if you've been caught in a doubt cycle, think back along your journey. See if you can spot some things that connect, some surprise connections, random connections that lead to unexpected surprises, where maybe you had a negative expectation that got defied, and maybe the opposite happened, just like for me, it did in Senegal. And think back to times you're in that moment, fully present, fully aware, taking everything in. Because the older I get, the more I think about life in different terms. I don't think about life all the time in terms of money and retirement. I think about life in terms of fulfillment, in terms of living life off the wall and understanding that there ain't no rules. It's up to you. So I take that to be, I get to create my own way. That is one of the essences of being a human, because I believe we're all creators, created by a creator to be creators, to bring good into the world, to celebrate the beauty that you see. Maybe it's a flower. Maybe it's over a shared meal in Dakar, Senegal. Maybe it's a date night with your partner. Maybe it's finally saying yes to the place you want to go to. So what are you celebrating? I would love to know. I would also like to celebrate you. Thank you for being here as part of my Substack. We're going to make this live video a more regular feature here because I love it. I love to be able to chat with you. And maybe it's time to do another show right here with you. Once again, my name is Rob Hunter. here on Substack, my website, robhunter.me. We'll be back real soon. Have a beautiful night. Celebrate, celebrate, and celebrate. Cheers.